Well, after that reading, you might be feeling the tiniest bit uncomfortable. I don't know about you, but I hear that and I hear Jesus acting in a somewhat un-Jesus-like manner. Throughout the Gospels, Jesus heals countless people, but in today's story, when a woman begs him to heal her child, he just says no. He even implies that healing her daughter would be like feeding the family dog while the children in the house go hungry. Now, as a dog lover who is sometimes ambivalent about children, I wasn't offended necessarily at first. Colleen put me straight, do not worry. But this is Jesus we're talking about. He's supposed to be better than I am, right? And that makes this story uncomfortable. But it is okay for Scripture to be uncomfortable. Uncomfortable does not have to mean unsafe. By this point in our Gospels, Jesus is getting a bit of a reputation. Everywhere he goes, people flock to him seeking healing or teaching or a snack. So once in a while, he likes to go someplace quiet for just a moment of peace. And I'm sure all parents, like Liam and Elise here today, can relate to this feeling of wanting a moment of peace now and then. In this case, Jesus leaves Jewish territory to go where he's less likely to even be recognized. Tyre and Sidon, in addition to being words I had to ask Colleen how to pronounce, were prosperous seaports. Today they are in Lebanon. Back then they were at the northern edge of the land of Canaan. According to the biblical narrative, when the Hebrews escaped Egypt, they settled in Canaan, claiming but perhaps not conquering all the way up through Tyre and Sidon. For Jews of Jesus' time, the Romans were the new oppressors on the block, but the Canaanites, like the Samaritans, were old enemies, bitter ethnic rivals with a long history of ugliness on both sides. In other words, this entire story takes place in unfriendly, uncomfortable territory. And at this point, we should linger for a moment on this Canaanite woman's remarkable faith. Womanist scholars in particular have done amazing work pointing out the ethnic and gender aspects of this story. She is a woman in a patriarchal society here stepping to a group of men all by her lonesome. She calls Jesus son of David, knowing he's a Jew, knowing the history between her people and his. And she not only approaches him, she dares to sass God incarnate a little bit, to talk back, to give as good as she got. It is not just her faith, but her courage and what she is willing to do for her child that we should admire. And Jesus starts out, again, saying, no, I'm not healing your daughter. I was only sent to my folks. That feels rough to hear, right? But she says, please, Lord, help me. And she even gets on her knees and begs him. And he gets mean, I guess. He doesn't just say, no, if you don't mind, I'm on a boys' retreat. I'm only available for healings Monday through Friday. You can download the app to schedule an appointment. No, he implies her people are dogs. And I'm not sure it matters if this was the common language used by Jews of his era or a common phrase. We expect better from Jesus. I also don't buy that he's being mean in order to somehow test her faith. It's too easy to tell the story that way. It is a telling that makes us just feel comfortable. But we grow the most when we are actively uncomfortable. Jesus tells her he's not going to throw food to the dogs, but she claps back, hey, even the dogs get what falls on the ground. And then I imagine there is a very long pause. A very long, very awkward pause before he says, great is your faith. And the woman's daughter is healed. The most straightforward way of reading this story is that Jesus saw her category more than her personhood at first. He saw her as a Canaanite woman more than as a child of God, and then she corrected him, and instead of freaking out and melting down, he owned the mistake. But we find that reading uncomfortable because our starting assumption is that Jesus cannot make mistakes. He's perfect, he's sinless, he's God, God cannot make mistakes. We have this idea in part because ancient Jews and early Christians had to explain their religion in ways that made sense to the people around them. And the people of the Greek-speaking Mediterranean world believed that perfect means never changing, which means never making mistakes. And since God must be perfect, then God cannot change or make mistakes. That understanding stays with us today, even though it doesn't fit super well with the actual God we encounter in the pages of our Bibles. God changes their mind a lot. In the most famous example, God says, making humans, that was a mistake, and wipes out most of them in a flood. But then God decides the flood was a mistake and says, my bad, that won't happen again. That's not a picture of God that makes sense to a Greek philosopher. Not a picture that makes sense to some of us still today. And if we went through every single example, we would be here till Tuesday. I won't do that to you. But if nerdy topics like this are your jam, I invite you to come Thursday nights, the 40s and under group. We were talking about this very topic this past week. So instead, let's put aside our assumptions for a moment about what perfection actually means. The most straightforward version of this story is that Jesus made a mistake, she corrected him, and instead of freaking out, he owned it. And I think that's perfect. Not avoiding a mistake, but how he responded to it. Maybe the lesson of this story is that pursuing perfection is about how we respond when, not if, we mess up. Jesus is fully divine, but also fully human, and if we know anything about human beings, it's that human beings make mistakes. You are going to make mistakes. That's not the important part. Don't kick yourself over the mistakes. All of us mess up all the time. What's important is what you do after. Whether you deny the mistake, gaslight folks, accuse, dodge, blame, avoid the responsibility, or whether you have the kind of spiritual grounding that lets you own your mistake without fear, and instead learn something, change, grow. Jesus might make a mistake here, but what makes him perfect is that he doesn't double down on it, he owns it. He acknowledges it, he switches gears, and so our challenge is not avoiding mistakes. It is learning from the mistakes we make. Now, to be clear, by owning your mistakes, I don't mean accepting blame for something that happened to you, or taking the blame for something somebody else did, or even saying sorry without any real personal reflection. Right? I simply mean all those times that you actually did mess up, and you kind of do know it. And realizing it, accepting it, changing course, and trying to grow from it. That's owning your mistake. And that is hard, and that is something none of us do particularly well. It's hard because owning your mistakes is just uncomfortable. And most of us have learned that to be uncomfortable means we're unsafe. Owning your mistakes means giving up that fantasy of control, that idea that says if you say the right thing at the right time, if you explain your mistake in the right way, you'll get the perfect reaction from everyone around you. Surrendering your control means they might be full of forgiveness and love when you own your mistake. They might be angry and hurtful. But it's acknowledging that that's on them. You can't control that. And the surrender of that fantasy of control, because it's never real control, the surrender of that fantasy, it feels scary. It actually feels like death. And when something feels like death, it invokes fight or flight in your body, and your body gets flooded, and your ability to respond and learn and grow shuts down. Or another example is if you own a mistake, you might face consequences. And that's real, right? There are no magic tricks in life that get you out of consequences, except maybe being stupidly rich. But by and large, there's no magic tricks that get you out of consequences in this world. But again, our choice in life is not between consequences and no consequences. The mistake has been made. The consequences are gonna come real no matter what. The choice is, how do you respond to them? Are you going to learn from them, accept it, or turn on other people? Maybe you don't like owning your mistakes because you are so down on yourself that you have told yourself that one more mistake, no matter how small, is more than you can handle. All of this, it feels too unsafe to handle. So we make a mistake, and instead of owning it, all of that unsafety comes at us, and we just go to dark places instead. I've met guys who would rather start a fight and hurt somebody than just own a mistake. I mean, I've seen men who get a mistake pointed out to them by a woman, and they're like, well, I guess I gotta go be a raging misogynist now. No other choice, can't own it. There has to be a better way for us to respond when we do the inevitably human thing of making mistakes. Think about the last time you just messed up something and how you responded. Think about the last time you responded the wrong way. What kind of faith, what kind of spirituality would you need in that moment to be able to own your mistake without fear, to admit it and to grow and learn from it? I look at Jesus and I see someone so aligned with the love of the Creator that he's not insisting on having control or ever resorting to ugliness to avoid consequences. The classic moment of this is when he's in the Garden of Gethsemane and he's weeping and he's saying, please take this cup away from me, but if it be your will, then so be it. And he's not telling the boys to grab swords and kick off. And I think when that woman called him out, I can't imagine that was comfortable. It's in front of his disciples. He just looks bad. I don't think he felt comfortable, but I don't think he felt unsafe. There was discomfort, but not danger. His faith, the faith he offers freely to all of us to share, his faith is a trust in God's love that creates safety even when things get uncomfortable. And that, my friends, is what God's grace is all about. You've made a mistake. There's nothing you can do. You're scared of what will happen. You're scared of the consequences. And God reaches out from beyond, from outside of everything you have known, outside of everything you can possibly understand. And God says, it's going to be okay. I love you. I forgive you. That's grace. Grace that is not made perfect in human strength, but in human weakness, right? Grace that releases us from the need for control, from the constant fear of what will come. If we have nothing else in that moment because of our mistakes, we have God's love wrapping us like a warm blanket. That's why we still, in churches, talk about sin and forgiveness. No matter how much time people have spent weaponizing the idea of sin against queer folks and other marginalized folks, no matter how hurtful that language has been to so many people, that idea still has such power. Because it says you don't start down here and then have to climb your whole life and avoid tripping. You don't start up here and any move you make, you could plummet. You start out forgiven. You start out freed. You start out found when you were lost. It's the great equalizer. It's not, oh, this person, you have to be perfect unlike those folks who are mess-ups, or you're just a screw-up unlike those perfect people. No, we're all full of mistakes. We're all in sin, but that's not scary because we're all forgiven. It's the check against pride and against self-loathing. Think of it this way. Some of you may feel sort of like you inherited a priceless painting. And every mistake you make is like somebody graffitiing on it, right? Spray painting it, going all Krog Tunnel all over this priceless painting. And others of you feel like this blank slate of paper you were given, and you're trying to draw something perfect and beautiful, and every mistake means it's done, it's over, you need to start over. But in reality, in God's eyes, all of our lives are like a drawing that was imperfect but made with tremendous love. That the world crumpled up into a ball and tossed in a corner, and then God went over and grabbed it and smoothed it out and said, no, this one's beautiful. All of these are beautiful. That's what grace is about. And trusting in God's grace, it does not make mistakes easy. As a professional mistake maker, it does not make mistakes easy. But it reminds us that nothing we do makes us unredeemable. We don't have to excuse harm, but we don't have to seek perfection. Reminds us that no person is all bad or all good. And so no mistake seems so scary that we can't own it. No, the discomfort and danger becomes just discomfort. Uncomfortable and unsafe just becomes uncomfortable. Grace turns the fear down, and that turns the dials on your nervous system down, and you become better able physically to be the kind of person God wants you to be, the kind of person most of you want to be. You become able to deal with relationships in the way you want to. And that's why I believe deeply that while we all need to do the work on ourselves, and no matter how much work we do, we still need to hear about God's grace and God's forgiveness. Because that's what Jesus offers us. Jesus doesn't offer the ability to avoid mistakes, but a trust in God that makes these challenges of life something we can overcome. Jesus offers that perfect faith to all of you. The faith of Jesus saves us. And living inside of grace makes everything less scary, even uncomfortable things like owning our mistakes. So now let us sing of God's amazing grace.